It's 2:00. So if everybody wants to, they're up to speed. I'm Pam Menaker, Communications Partner at Clifford Law Offices. We have with us here, joining us at the press conference, Bradley M. Cosgrove. Bradley, Bradley, M. Cosgrove, Cosgrove, partner at Clifford Law Offices. Joining him also is a partner at Clifford Law Offices, Joseph T. Murphy. Common spelling, but I'll spell it, M-U-R-P-H-Y. And they'll be talking about the complaint that they filed this morning in the case on behalf of Connor Kaczmarski. So I'm going to turn it over now to Bradley Cosgrove, partner in Clifford Law. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you for being here today. On behalf of Connor Kaczmarski's family, we, the Clifford Law Offices, filed a complaint alleging wrongful death and other things against various defendants involving the January 20th, 2023 crash that ended up costing Connor his life. Connor was a 7-year-old boy who got done with school for the day in Park Forest, Illinois. He was a passenger on a school bus that reads the Cackert School Bus Company, School Bus Line Incorporated, that dropped off 4 children at the corner of Westgate Drive and Walnut Street in Park Forest, Illinois. It was after school. 4 children got off. Connor was the last boy to get off the bus, and they were dropped off at the corner of Westgate Drive, which is this street here. This is Westgate, and then this street here is Walnut. They were dropped off at the corner right here, and Connor lived right in this house right here. Along with 3 other kids, they were dropped off by a bus driver named Daryl Downs. Prior to the day of the incident that we're going to talk about, there was some gross negligence by the part of various defendants in the case. Daryl Downs was not a licensed bus driver at the time. Daryl Downs, his driver's license was canceled and should never have been behind the wheel of the school bus at the time of our incident. For one reason or another that is unknown and unexplained, the school district and the school bus company allowed Mr. Downs to drive a school bus in an unlicensed fashion. He did not meet the minimum requirements necessary in order to be a commercial driver's license holder, and his license was canceled, was not active at the time of the incident, and he was driving the school bus full of children for unknown reasons. At the time of the incident, the children were dropped off, and when they were dropped off, the bus driver, the unlicensed driver, Mr. Downs, dropped off the children in violation of Illinois statutes. We have provided here for our conference today the pertinent code under our Illinois laws, which is 625 ILCS 5/11-1423. Section B specifically states that at all discharge points, so everywhere kids get off the bus, where it is necessary for a school bus passenger to cross the roadway, the school bus driver shall direct the passenger to a point approximately 10 feet in front of the bus, on the shoulder, and shall then signal to the passenger when it is safe to cross the roadway. In our instance, as you saw in our photographs, when the kids were dropped off at this corner, 2 children had to cross the roadway, one to this home and then Connor to our house here. The bus driver, the unlicensed driver, Mr. Downs, for whatever reason, decided not to follow his training, didn't follow industry standards or protocol, and made a right-hand turn onto Walnut Street and did not allow the children to pass in front of the bus safely, as is required by Illinois statutes and custom and practice in the bus driving industry. As the bus continued in a northbound fashion down Walnut Street, Mr. Downs crashed into Connor, and Mr. Downs continued on and never stopped. He never stopped and continued to drive that day. And actually got called back to the scene after the incident by his dispatch. When the bus driver returned to the scene, he was asked to give a blood sample for toxicology, of which he refused. A warrant ended up being required in order to obtain blood for the toxicology results, and it was obtained through an order by a judge in Markham, Illinois. The following day and a few days later, it appears that the police department attempted to obtain statements from Mr. Downs concerning his lack of a driver's license and his conduct on the day of our incident where he failed to follow Illinois statutes. Mr. Downs did not return telephone calls on several days and ultimately was scheduled to come to the Park Forest Police Station to give an interview of what happened this day. Mr. Downs did not appear for his appointment, and the police had to go and try to find him. Ultimately got a hold of Mr. Downs. Mr. Downs came in a couple days later for an interview, and when he came in for an interview, Mr. Downs pled the Fifth Amendment and refused to make any statements so as not to self-incriminate himself. On behalf of the family, we have a prepared statement that I'd like to turn your attention to, and we're going to show you now a statement by the family on the screen. As it relates to this case, we have a number of unanswered questions, and we have a lawsuit that we have every intention of getting answers. First and foremost, why in the world would a bus company, like the defendants in this case, allow an unlicensed bus driver to have in his care little children like Connor and others? Why would a school district like the Park Forest Chicago Heights District 163 allow unlicensed bus drivers to be driving around their children? Why would they allow unlicensed bus drivers to be violating statutes that have existed since the 1970s for the safety of children like Connor? Those are questions that we promise to get answered and to try to make sure that tragedies like this are prevented and do not happen to anyone else's children. On behalf of the plaintiffs in this case, Mr. Murphy also has a statement that he would like to indicate to the press as well.
Right, so about a week after Connor's death, we sent our investigators out to take drone footage of the scene. We do have that drone footage and we're prepared to show it to you. Before we do show it, I want to qualify it with something, okay? Now Connor is a 7-year-old child. He wasn't 17 years old. He's 7-year-old kid. Now, common sense dictates that if you drop a 7-year-old off, you drop him off at his home, right? It's common sense. You don't need a law for that. You're not going to drop him off at his home. You drop him off on the same side of the street where he lives. If you're not going to do that, then you follow the law, drop him off on the side of the street where he doesn't live, and you make sure, according to the statute, you make sure that he safely crosses the street. None of this was followed.
So
Right?
obviously you believe that there was an error in the procedure on how Connor and the others were dropped off. So just walk us through that and why it wasn't done properly.
Right, so on the day that Connor died, he was dropped off on Westgate Street, right, on Westgate Street. He should have been dropped off in front of his home. The 7-year-old child should have been dropped off in front of his home, at the very least on the same side of the street where he lived, right? Or they could have followed the law, and if they were going to drop him off on the opposite side of the street, the bus driver should have signaled that it was safe to cross the street. So our drone, our investigators, we sent out a drone about a week or so later on January 30th. And it's, as you can see from the video, it captures the bus dropping off one of the children that was on the bus the day that Connor died, right in front of her home. Waited for her to go up and to get to her door, then drives off. On the day that Connor died, that same child was dropped off on Westgate Street and Walnut Drive. So what changed there? If it would have been done properly that same day, we wouldn't be here.
Let me just add to everybody here, the video that obviously we're having some difficulty with is on our website. You can download the entire video from our website. It's about a minute long. So even though, we wasn't able to capture it here, we can capture it from our website.
You have traffic, you have other buses, you have, this isn't even just about safety from other cars and traffic. This is about safety of getting kids home to their houses in case there's anything else that might happen. This is a 7-year-old child.
You know, and another thing to think about is this isn't just an issue of, a mistake that happened on the day of the incident. This is really a planning issue that starts at the beginning of every school year. And every school throughout Chicago, if there's a bus route involved, there needs to be some complex thought about what side of the school bus or what side of the roadway are the children getting out of, so that you can plan a route where you don't have to have 7-year-olds crossing the roadway, but rather are dropped off on the same side of the road where they live. It's a planning issue that starts from day one of the school year that carries through. And it happens in every school throughout Chicago and certainly throughout our country, that these exact plans are made for the safety of our children. There is absolutely no reason on the day of our incident that Connor should have been dropped off in the corner where he was dropped off. He should never have been forced as a 7-year-old to have to cross the street when proper planning could have prevented that.
And of course, I mean, the police department chose not to file any moving violations against him because they say that the bus driver had already turned the corner and that Connor was running alongside the passenger side, and the driver never likely saw that he had.
Well, the driver took the Fifth Amendment and refused to give any statements at all. So he didn't give an answer to the police about what actually happened that day. There's no answer of what he saw or what he didn't see. We believe,
Well, this is a statement from the police that they issued.
would you say that again
This is a statement from the police that they issued.
about why
That
they
the
did?
bus had already, yes, that they said the bus had already turned the corner. And Connor was running alongside the bus on the passenger side. And then crossed into the street and the driver never saw him or realized he had hit him. And that's why they chose, among other things, to not file any moving violations against.
I can't speak for what the police did. There is absolutely no reason why this man wasn't charged with moving violations. This was a reckless act that was preventable. And we believe, and we still think that there is time for there to be charges made in the case. And we think that there should be charges made. And may I also make a statement to you to think about? Police do not make charges. The police don't charge anybody. So when you say that the police made a statement whether they charge someone or not, that just tells you the issue we have here. The state's attorney is the one who makes a decision to charge, not the police. Police make absolutely no charges against people. It has to be done by the state's attorney. And I don't believe we've heard any statements by the state's attorney as to why charges were not issued. I do know that there were charges levied against Mr. Downs for failure to have a driver's license, and his license has also been suspended as well for his refusal to submit to any type of drug or alcohol testing on the day of the incident.
Let me add to this too.
Yeah.
So the police report states he was not distracted by an electronic communication device. Our investigation revealed that UNX was distracted on that day. He was distracted by looking across the street, looking at someone else, beeping his horn. So he wasn't paying attention. That's what our investigation reveals. Now, whether or not the police can charge him with that, that's the police's prerogative.
And if I may ask you, what do we know about why his driver's license had been canceled?
He didn't meet the minimum, the driver absolutely did not meet the minimum safety requirements that are required by the state of Illinois in order to have an active CDL with a bus certificate on top of it. And because of it, his license was canceled.
How long could he have been driving with a canceled license for the school? But
How long could he have been?
do we know how long he had been driving with a canceled driver's license?
I'm not sure it makes much of a difference. The day of our incident, the fact that he didn't have a valid license meant that he was an unqualified driver and never should have been behind the wheel. But as to the date of the actual cancellation or suspension is something that our discovery process will have to show us.
Okay,
Obviously you can't speak for the family, but the fact that they're not here today, I imagine just indicates how truly devastated they still are.
They're so grief stricken. they really wanted to be here and they thought about it and they tried very, very hard to be here, but they just were unable to sit in front of the media and they have a statement. So they asked that we provide a written statement that we display for you folks because they just weren't able to do it. They're just too registered.
What are you hoping to get from them?
In relationship to this case.
Yeah, I mean, I don't just in terms of monetary reward, but what is your hope in this lawsuit, produces?
Number one, it has to make sure that Connor didn't die in vain. This instance has to make sure that we have public safety awareness for these exact instances. Number one, it has to be a testament to why bus route organization at the beginning of every school year is paramount to children's safety. That's step one. Step two, we have to make sure that any person that's driving our children in our state is actually licensed and meets the minimum requirements necessary to do so. Number three, once you have a proper route and you have a properly licensed driver, you have to make sure that the drivers are trained and qualified to follow Illinois statutes about how to drop children off in a safe fashion. Statute that's been around since the 1970s should be followed in every occasion. There's no reason why a driver wouldn't follow the most basic safety standard of when you stop and let a child out that you know has to cross the street, you should let them cross the street and direct them that it's safe to cross the street approximately at least 10 feet or more in front of the bus for the safety of the children exiting the vehicle. So at a bare minimum, we hope that this will raise awareness to make sure that it doesn't happen again, that it will be advocated, that this will advocate for future bus route safety and for prevention in the future.
Anything you guys would like to add?
That was the family's bottom line, is they wanted to get out that this might be happening all over the county for all the buses, like kids out, not following the soft spot, those seven bulls, they didn't do They should be letting children out on the outside side of the street. They really should be letting them out on the same side of the street, they're 7 years old, let them out on the outside of the streets. Make sure that they safely can cross, get to their home safely. It's as simple as that. And if it is happening, they want to make sure it stops, put them into it.